You're very welcome along to Wednesday evening's Off the Ball. Andy Farrell has named a 36-man squad. Just one of the points up for discussion with Keith Wood and the Irish Independent's Rory O'Connor on Wednesday Night Rugby this evening after 8. Meanwhile, there are some murmurings, and I must say I'm sceptical, but there are some murmurings certainly, that Lewis Hamilton is on the verge of walking away from Formula One. Journalist Jess McFadden is going to join us on the never-ending fallout from Abu Dhabi. That's this hour. And Manchester United are away to Brentford this evening. Leicester host Spurs. Dan McDonnell is along in studio for the football show between 9 and 10. 53106 is the text number. We're at Off the Ball on Twitter. Richie McCormack, evening.
Evening, Joe.
Johnny Ward, come on in. Hello.
How are you, Joe? How are you getting on?
Yeah, very well. What's happening in your world? What's taking your fancy? What's catching your eye? What's going on, Johnny?
Not that much. It's kind of January feeling. I'm just trying to get back into the new year. Another year starts, Joe, and all that. We're well into January now, but just hoping that kind of restrictions are eased at the end of the month, and that I guess for the Six Nations, I think the IRFU and the various organisations, I think they need crowds back, and I think for the League of Ireland as well. The soundings are good on that score. I think I'm encouraged by that anyway. But some worries for Shamrock Rovers, which we will discuss in terms of the crowd for their first game for the season.
The soundings are not good out of Old Trafford ahead of kick-off this evening against Brentford. I was just, before we came on air, reading Miguel Delaney's piece where he's talked to various people around the club. Geez, these players are hard to please. So listen to some of this and you can tell me just how grim the rest of the season is going to be. In one of Ralph Rangnick's early training sessions, the German barked an instruction in a manner that startled some of the Manchester United players.
Oh my God.
Things don't improve. So he barked in a manner that startled some of the Manchester United players. Looks were exchanged between players. Quips soon followed. Later on in the piece, Rangnick's austere manner has become one of his more conspicuous characteristics when he's actually on the training ground. Some of the players joke about how he's now shouting again. A few roll their eyes and wish he'd be less loud. Just imagine Ralph Rangnick sort of as a toddler going around screaming. So they go on to say here, Miguel Delaney here goes on to say, and he's spoken to various people, Rangnick wants them to press, but actually it turns out Manchester United's average pressing this season, number of presses per game 43.4, their average under Rangnick is 41.8, so pressing has gone down, and the sense is he can't connect with the players, and that's one of the reasons they're not following his instructions so well. The players apparently hungry for tactical information, but interestingly they don't see as much of Rangnick as they expected to. The German likes to leave a lot of the training to his assistants, and when he does get involved, he's seen as very severe. That has meant the United players have found the whole situation rather cold. In the most concerning development, a few sources say the players don't really understand what Rangnick wants from them in terms of play. The general feeling is that the appointment has had a deflating effect rather than the spark anticipated. That's just some of Miguel Delaney's very interesting piece from the London Independent this afternoon. So I know, Richie, I'm hopeful. I think there's a lot of good stuff in there.
The very fact that piece exists and is so well sourced and has so many reputable quotes within it suggests how toxic the atmosphere at Manchester United is, because pieces like that at a well-running club do not happen. Like you don't hear quotes from that coming out from the Liverpool squad. You don't hear quotes like that coming out from even like Arsenal players under Mikel Arteta when things haven't been going great. Certainly doesn't happen under Pep Guardiola at Manchester City. But far too often, like these United players, underperforming as they are, seem to think that talking to the press is a better outlet than actually going to their manager and asking, okay, well, what do you actually want from us here? Rather than saying, well, he's not giving us any information. Like, they're a bunch of kids who've gone home with saying they've no homework because their teacher, like, essentially told them to read. Like, well, I'm not reading that. They're a bunch of babies. Like, and it's really, really weird to see people who are aging between, like, in Cristiano Ronaldo's going to be knocking on 40 down to, teenagers like Anthony Elanga, and whoever's giving the quotes to the press saying that he's not teaching us properly, like, really needs to have a proper look at themselves, because they don't have the work behind them to justify the whinges that are being given to the likes of Miguel.
Don't have the credit in the bank. They need a Ross Geller type to go in and just ask Ralph to, just quiet, and can we just too loud. What struck me, Johnny, about the piece was it's the kind of piece that you read after a manager has been sacked, the traditional what went wrong under this manager piece where everybody blabs and spills the beans. Rangnick's about 5-10 games in here, and he's already a dead man walking, so I don't hold out much hope of United improving much.
No, and they haven't really improved since he took over in terms of just watching them, and it's mad to contrast them with Man City because I don't know about you lads, but it's hard to get any joy out of Man City's title march, and if you take away the way the club is run and how they're funded and all that, just take all that away, even watching them, there's something a little bit joyless about their domination. But it's almost like an army routine there under Guardiola. There isn't really much dissent kind of allowed, and what are they, 56 points from 22 games. They've been amazingly efficient the last 12 games in particular. I think they're on a 12-game winning run. Watching them just squeeze the life out of teams and just win so ruthlessly, and then you compare it to Man United and the salaries that these guys are on and how pampered they are. It's just absolutely incredible, and it's amazing because I was just thinking of this coming on today. If we did talk about Man United, the amount of times that I have spoken about Man United over the last few months, this is about a team that may or may not come fourth this season in the Premier League. It's why it's almost and I know everyone, so many people love Man United, but it's the amount of time that we give them, and the amount of time we talk about their underperforming players, challenges of the management team and all that. It's so inconsistent with what they are as a team at the moment.
Very true, very true. It's interesting you raised the Man City point, because we had that very discussion on Monday and Ken Early was writing about it, and generally I think most people are in agreement that there is an extraordinary quality to Man City's football, and yet it's far too clinical and efficient and conservative, oddly, which is not a phrase you would necessarily associate with possession-based football and when they score lots of goals. But there is a conservatism in how they play and don't take on Hail Mary moments too often. They'll recycle possession, and that's why a Jack Grealish goes from being box office to, just another cog in the wheel. So with Man City, there is that humdrum lack of emotional roller coaster that is dull, and it's really just a consequence of their efficiency. So it's hard to be critical of them as a team because they're all brilliant, and yet the reality is, as we sit and watch sport, we're looking for a touch more roller coaster here and there.
We are, and there's so much football on now. There's so much Premier League football on that, you almost expect all the top teams' games to be available to you to watch. And you do get to the point where we're in the start of January, the league is over, and I'm not really that bothered about watching the Champions Elect anytime in the near future apart from the Champions League. I'd prefer to watch for example, Norwich are playing, I think they're playing Watford on Friday, and just for the sake of Adamida and, Omoba Medele, I've kind of gotten into watching a bit of Norwich and hoping that they might actually survive and finish ahead of Newcastle, which I think would just be great for the world and for football. But I have no real interest in watching Man City as much as De Bruyne is, edging back into form, and they're such amazing footballers. And as a manager like Guardiola must be so happy with the way that they're just obeying him and all that. And Ken's article was interesting that you referenced in that, even some of these beautiful footballers, they themselves just seem to, after a while, get a little bit bored of it. And Manchester City are just going to be boring for the rest of the season, unless you support Manchester City. And if you support Manchester City, I'm not even sure you find it that interesting anymore yourself.
We'll come back to that topic, I'm sure. Dan McDonald's in the football show, might throw it to him as well. Before we get to Richie's news round, I haven't talked to you in a while, Johnny. We're into late January now, which means Cheltenham is starting to come up on the horizon. So, big picture, what are we looking at for Cheltenham? Irish trainers once again to trounce the English. Is that very much on the cards again? And are there any big storylines that you're looking at in particular?
Yeah, there was an interesting article in the Racing Post, I think yesterday, by Bill Barber, and he was just talking about the problems that racing faces in terms of getting sponsors. And it's the Gold Cup actually at the moment, lack of ability to get a sponsor to follow Magners. And Magners ended up basically in a big spat with the guys who were organised the sponsorship at Cheltenham because of a fallback from the Cheltenham that controversially went ahead 2 years ago, which is kind of hard to believe at this stage. But, Bill's article was just talking about the negatives of the Bryony Frost situation, obviously the Gordon Elliott situation, which we spoke about last March. There are a lot of challenges for racing, I think, going forward, Joe, and also a lot of challenges as well in terms of field sizes in Britain at the moment are quite small. Getting people back racing in Ireland, the betting ring is virtually wiped out in Ireland at the moment. An awful lot of challenges. So it'll be interesting to see with Cheltenham. Like, I think in terms of the Cheltenhams that I've looked forward to, this has to be one of the ones where I'm not as excited about it as before, despite the fact we've all these outstanding horses, because it's been really strange since the start of the pandemic, the amount of time, and it's become habitual for me to be watching racing almost, at home. So the prospect going over to Cheltenham is quite different, as much as we're going to have a real quality in terms of the novices, right from the Supreme all the way to all the good novice races. Gordon Elliott, Willie Mullins and Henry de Bromhead will represent Ireland very well, but racing's in a slightly different place to where it was, we'll say, that controversial Cheltenham before the start of the pandemic, and it has a lot of challenges ahead.
Okay, that's the voice of Johnny Ward with us here for the Newsround this evening, which is brought to you by Gillette. Put your best face forward with our new and improved razors. And Richie McCormack, you're starting with Andy Farrell's Six Nations squad.
Yes, indeed, I am. Photo shoot star Joe Molloy. Uncapped duo Mac Hansen and Mike Lowry have been named in Ireland's Six Nations squad. Australian-born Hansen qualifies through a Corkonian mother, and his inclusion comes off the back of a string of impressive performances since joining Connacht in the summer. Lowry is in impeccable form for Ulster and was man of the match in last week's Champions Cup win at Northampton. James Lomas is out. He has a muscle injury, but Joey Carberry is included, despite the fact he's still coming back from a fractured elbow. There's no room for either of Leinster's Byrne brothers, but Jack Carty earns a recall, as does Kieran Treadwell, and no Simon Zebo either in that squad of 37.
Keith Wood and Rory O'Connor on the way after 8 o'clock. Loads to discuss there. We're going to chat a bit about the English squad as well, which is very interesting. Eddie Jones has pronounced this week that this is his third team, his third regeneration. It's interesting, I guess, because they've so many players to choose from. He can almost be that ruthless, whereas in Ireland we have to almost keep what we have. We can't have that dramatic turnover. So he said he had the team from the 2015 World Cup, which he rode all the way through to 2018 territory, then started a new team which brought him through to the World Cup, and he said that team pretty much died for him last year. So 2022 he's got a new team and it's all about the World Cup. So we'll chat to Keith and Rory about that. Jones says, Johnny, team only lasts 2, 3, 4 years, generally 2 to 3 is his opinion, and then you're on the slide. Peak performance, everybody being hungry, just a cycle, I suppose, in his opinion. He always feels in rugby, maybe it's different other sports, but he feels in rugby a team has a 2-3 year cycle before you got to start doing major surgery, ideally.
Yeah, it's because I'm just thinking of Man City there, and it's like, have they gone that much back? But I don't know. I think that this is going to be a brilliant Six Nations. I'm just like the quality of the, say, Ireland, England, and obviously France as well.
Yeah.
And I think, I don't know, I'd say like the atmosphere in Lansdowne Road is going to be amazing for even the 2 home games they have, Scotland and Wales, because of the fact that it's just such hunger there. And I'm a peripheral kind of fan of rugby, but the French team, it's a long time since I've watched a team as good to watch in rugby as this French team.
Yes, no, there's no doubt. France being back has injected something back into the Six Nations after almost a lost decade, there is no doubt. So Ireland start off with Wales at home in 2.5 weeks time at this stage. So Keith and Rory O'Connor on the way after 8 o'clock. Richie, we did allude to the live football this evening.
Yeah, and Manchester United are seeking a first away win since November. Ralph Rangnick's side are away to Brentford from 8 o'clock. Cristiano Ronaldo and Scott McTominay are back in the Manchester United starting 11 tonight. Meanwhile, Matt Doherty must again content himself with a place on the Tottenham bench. They are away to Leicester City. That game kicks off at 7:30. Egypt looking to secure automatic qualification for the last 16 at the Africa Cup of Nations. 17 minutes played in their final Group D clash tonight. It's Egypt 0, Sudan 0. Scoreless 2 between Nigeria and Guinea-Bissau. Nigeria were already secured of a place in the knockout phase.
We have Mim in Cork who's been in touch. God help those poor little multi-millionaire lambs at Man United. The big bad man shouting at them. Are they toddlers or what? They would be running crying to their mum if Jose Mourinho or Roy Keane was in charge. These leagues are pathetic and go to show just how pampered they are. Well, 2 points on that. One, I suppose you're right on the league's point. Maybe in defence of the majority, it would only take a few who might be out of the team and unhappy anyway to provide enough leaks to generate a piece like that, but we don't know who the leaks are coming from. Secondly, on the Mourinho Roy Keane point, Johnny, I think that's precisely why management is, passing Jose Mourinho by, and is perceived to have passed Roy Keane by. It's because this style of management doesn't work with the majority of players now.
It's completely true, and like even Tuchel, I'd have to say I really admire how kind of honest he is. After games, he was talking about Chelsea weren't great against Brighton last night. He was speaking after the game about he thinks the players are tired. He'd be regarded as an extremely good manager, but even he's kind of thinking the schedule for these players. Maybe I'm actually playing I'm not rotating the squad enough or whatever, and Roy Keane is he's kind of a good example of what's wrong with kind of football punditry at the moment, in that he's really good to listen to, but I'm not sure he has anything to offer tactically. So he just says the same sound bites in terms of the players are a joke, they have to work harder, he has to go up for a header there. But Roy Keane's a failed manager at this stage, and he's failed for a reason, because he wasn't him to evolve. And I'm not saying that's easy, but that in fairness to Guardiola, how he gets the players of the modern era to just perform day in, day out for him is really testament to his ruthless nature. Because a lot of managers, I think the game is just passing the by in that regard. And the kids of today they're a little bit different, maybe.
Yeah, it's with Keane and his analysis, everything is a question of personality. Even at the weekend just gone by, there was an Aston Villa defender. I just walked in towards the end of it, and he was trying to warm up to a mini fitness test at half time and couldn't get through it. And Keane was saying, well, show a bit more. But I was thinking, the guy's injured. And he's realised early on here, I'm injured, so there's no point persevering. That can't be about personality necessarily. It's too easy to sit from studio, not know what the injury is, and just put it down to personality. The stat that always gets me, you could think, well, is this increasingly an age thing? Pep Guardiola's a year older than Roy Keane.
Yeah, and the thing with Roy Keane is, he has to be aware of his power at this stage. And, you've been on stage with him and you've been able to bear witness to that. And for a guy who, is effectively become a football pundit now, his qualities, a bit like Bart Simpson and I Didn't Do It, will eventually die out, because it's the same thing, and it's not you can't just keep reiterating the same kind of narrative. He's got to put his body there, or he looks, he's got to work harder, because we need more than that. And Shane Keegan spoke about this 2 or 3 weeks ago on Football Saturday. Some of the punditry now, tell me something tactical about the game, tell me something I don't see, because I can see exactly what you're saying.
I hear what you're saying, and I know, Rich, you agree. I would actually counter it by saying, generally I agree with you. I would find that style tiresome. I think Roy Keane is so amazingly magnetic and so impressive in full flow and so box office that actually I'm more than happy for him to be on my TV screen for a long time to come. And generally, if I turn on Sky and he's not there on a Sunday, I kind of think, it's a pity Keane's not there. So certain individuals, the fact that we're still talking about Roy Keane so much, certain individuals I think will always be very, very interesting, and he'll always have it.
Well, that, and coupled with, you tie that to the point about Manchester City not being lovable, it just goes to show that essentially what we're viewing is an entertainment product, and we're viewing it through the lens now of it being an entertainment product, and solely that. We're not looking for
often, Richie,
sporting endeavour, and we're not looking for nuance.
The main red stories on various websites are what Keane, Neville or Carragher said about a game, as opposed to the game itself. It's what's going on here? What are we actually watching? Are we watching someone who played the game 20 years ago talking about Man United, or are we watching the game ourselves and making our own kind of conclusions on it?
Yeah. Thing about that, though, is audiences say this, but then they dictate what the most read stories are. So
absolutely,
absolutely, in the privacy of their own tablet, screen, phone or otherwise, they're clicking on it. So it's a never-ending circle and cycle. Anyway, my God, let's reverse from the Roy Keane discussion, can we? 7:20 on a Wednesday.
No,
once in our lives.
And talk Australian Open. So is COVID? Are we using the word rife? You're using the word rife. I see here, Richie, at the Australian Open.
Alexander Zverev certainly seems to think it could be. Yeah, Ugo Humbert tested positive after his first round exit, as did Bernard Tomic during the qualifiers. Prior to testing positive, Tomic also claimed that players weren't being tested. And third seed Zverev echoed that allegation today, following his straight sets win over John Millman.
My brother, when he arrived, he had it. He was in quarantine in Sydney. Now he's obviously, he doesn't have it anymore. But I think quite a few players had it when they arrived. Quite a few players, I think, have it now. We are not getting tested. So I think if we would get tested, there would be probably more positives than there are now, in a way. But I'm somebody, I'm here to play the tournament, and I understand that there's a lot of cases in Melbourne, there's a lot of cases in Australia all around, so I don't do much outside. I haven't been to any restaurants yet, I haven't been out, I haven't been anywhere but the hotel room and the court, so I'm kind of doing a bubble for myself, simply because I don't want to take any risks and I want to give myself the best chance possible to do well here. And if I get COVID, then that's obviously not going to happen.
Rich?
Rafa Nadal will face Karen Khachanov in round 3 after seeing off Yannick Hanfmann in straight sets today. A 4th round meeting of top seed Ash Barty and defending champion Naomi Osaka moved a step closer today. Osaka took just 65 minutes to dispatch Madison Brengel in straight sets, while Barty beat the Italian qualifier Lucia Bronzetti 6-1, 6-1. 4th seed Barbora Krejcikova also progressed, and she'll face another ex-French Open champion in Yelena Ostapenko in round 3.
Very good. Now, Johnny did mention the Shamrock Rovers situation, so what's going on here?
Yeah, they look like beginning the defence of their SSE Electricity Premier Division title behind closed doors. They've been punished after fireworks were aimed at the RSC pitch from the away end during November's game away to Waterford. The club banned 2 supporters for their part in the incident shortly thereafter. Rovers begin the season at home to UCD, but they're likely to appeal the FAI's punishment.
Johnny, you'd be afraid with the league. Is this kind of a ban in keeping with previous incidents?
Well, I never recall fireworks being thrown on a pitch, and if you saw the images and the videos of this, like I'd never seen anything like it in the League of Ireland, and like it's quite possible what was done here was a lot bigger than, like, you know, what fans should be punished in terms of going to games or not. But let's be honest here, and I'm interested to know what Richie's view as a Bows fan. I mean, this is extremely harsh in Shamrock Rovers. I mean, can you be completely accountable for away fans at a game and the stewarding of the? Do you know what I mean? And the home stewarding at games?
It's in the rules. Like I did a couple of pieces up on it at the time when the news broke that Friday night, and then again this afternoon when the news of the punishment kind of eked out. But it is written into the FAI rules that further sanctions might be imposed in case of serious disturbances. Sorry, I'm just trying to bring up the line here.
I think Richie, the Shamrock Rovers fans, I was told that the Shamrock Rovers fans like actually alerted like the relevant security to who did this, and I've a lot of sympathy for them, because let's be honest, can you police every fan going into a ground at home and away games? I think, particularly in light of fans coming back to grounds, I just think it's very, very harsh.
Yeah, the actual rule states the visiting club or team is liable for improper conduct among its own group of spectators, regardless of the question of culpable conduct or culpable oversight, and depending on the situation may be fined and or instructed to pay compensation for damages. And then it goes on into further sanctions, etc., etc. But included in that is use of racist behaviour, fireworks, displaying slogans in any form, and encroaching onto the pitch. So they have broken the rules. It doesn't matter where the matter took place. They were responsible for their own fans under the rules of the FAI. I'll be honest, like I can't remember a stadium ban for something like this happening, so it would be unusual if it's not necessarily a first. But
it feels like a harsh rule.
I'd be interested to see how the appeal goes.
It does feel like a harsh rule to me.
It does, because like the irony as well of like there's so much of a buzz about the first round of games next year, and even for UCD I think Rovers could get 7 or 8, maybe even sell out Tala for this game because there's so much of a buzz. And the irony of having had so many empty stadia, including for the visit of Milan, and then you're back to this, it's just, I don't know. I hope they appeal it, and I hope something else happens, like a fine or something, because I just think this is very harsh.
Where were you, Richie, the night that Shamrock Rovers played Waterford? In fact, don't answer that, but you knew the rule. You knew the rule.
I was sat at this desk watching the tweets rolling in and going, good God, what's happening down there? I think that was the same night Mark Bircham went off with his players as well. So it's been an interesting couple of months for Waterford.
You might, and there's very little we can say about this, but it is an interesting story, isn't it? You might just bring us this Arsenal betting pattern story.
Yeah, it's reported that a yellow card given to an Arsenal player earlier this season is under investigation for suspicious betting patterns. The Athletic claims that bookmakers flagged to the FA an unusual amount of money placed on the player to receive a booking during a Premier League game. An FA spokesperson says they're looking into the matter, while Arsenal have refused to comment.
Okay.
I can't say much about this, obviously, Joe, but
I suspect you're about to.
So I'm not. I'm going to be quite careful here. I think the bookmakers did alert the authorities, because there was suspicious betting here. But if a player is done for this, he will face serious punishment. So like, it might seem like a kind of a minor thing, and it's like, oh, somebody, there was suspicious. If somebody is done for this, there's serious punishment. Like, you're talking bans of years here. Like, so it's going to be a big story.
Yeah, a huge story. Absolutely. Fellas, we're just out of time. Johnny Ward, pleasure. Thanks so much, Johnny.
Thanks, Joe.
Richie McCormack, as ever, thank you.
That's all.
Cheers.